The Pittsburgh Steelers playoff matchup is with the Houston Texans, the number one defense in the league, and Mike Tomlin says they have the best edge rushing duo in the league. We talk about how the Steelers offense needs to plan to face them and protect Aaron Rodgers while not compromising the offense. We got Mike Tomlin talking about that. We also have Nick Farabaugh here to talk about that. I'm Chris Carter. This is the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. A reminder, the Locked On Steelers podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcasting network in the world. We are also brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. More on them later. As I said before, we're joined by the man himself, Nick Farabaugh. He's back from PennLive.com. We always love having Nick here. Nick, I downplayed this quite a bit. Not downplayed. I pointed this out that the Steelers did not do anything extra against Myles Garrett in the second game against the Browns than they did in the first game, in that they chipped him. They always chip him. They always send help to whoever's playing left tackle and facing up against him. It's nothing irregular. But I went and asked Mike Tomlin about that, about going up against another team with top tier edge rushers. He said in his press conference on Tuesday, Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, they're the best right now. And he kind of immediately went into where I'm like, Mike, I was like, I know I agree, but I'm talking about what does this offense have to do when they face these guys? Before we get to Mike, Nick, what's the thing that this offense has to get right when facing a high-end pass rushing defense like the Texans?
It's so hard to pin down a game plan because there's no Darnell Washington. And that was always the answer, right? Just have Darnell help whatever side needed help. The other half is this is a two-sided monster. It's not a one-sided monster like Myles, right? Yeah. You could isolate Myles to one side. This is two guys that are monsters. And so it's not even similar to the Lions, right? I think we would both say that Aiden Hutchinson and Muhammad over there are not nearly as good as Anderson and Hunter as a duo, despite how good Aiden Hutchinson is. And so this team, to me, is just a unique project. And so I think the project has to be is, what can you do schematically? Is it splits? Is it trying to get them basically to widen their splits? Is it keep Gainwell and Warren in the backfield a little more? You don't necessarily want to do that, right? They're so useful to your game plan. I think it's kind of tough. So you got to strategically mix it up. Different slide protections, keeping certain guys in on different plays. It's kind of how the Steelers have been doing it schematically defensively, right? Where they're kind of sending pressure from different places, dropping guys out. Same thing offensively. You're bringing kind of the help from different places, trying to get as many obstacles as you can in front of those guys. And I honestly think they're going to try and leave Troy Fautanu probably alone as much as they can, just to see if he can do it and try and make sure that they don't put so much help on the line to where now the route combinations are too vanilla. So there's a fine line there. But to me, you got to focus, and I personally would focus on Will Anderson more. I think he is the monster of that group, and his attention gets Danielle Hunter, kind of the one-on-ones that he gets. But if I'm the Steelers right now, you got to basically conservatively think, how much do you want to accumulate your running backs there, because those guys are going to be so important. You can use Spencer Anderson a lot more. I think that can be an answer, maybe more 6-0 line sets, get under center a little more. Like, there's a bunch of different things you can do schematically. So my menu is do as much as you can, but don't compromise the offense and your weapons, especially at the running back position.
Let's go to Mike Tomlin. When I asked him that question and some follow-ups that he gave about facing this Texans pass rush, here was Mike Tomlin during his Tuesday press conference.
Mike, you guys, the offense struggled against the Browns when you guys were putting the effort in to stop Myles Garrett as a pass rusher. Now you're dealing with two elite edge rushing threats. How do you guys make the plan work in pass protection while avoiding the pitfalls that hit you guys against the Browns in the offense?
let me be clear. I've mentioned this several times, but you guys don't seem to hear me. We didn't do anything uniquely against the Cleveland Browns from a protection standpoint that we don't always do when we play the Cleveland Browns. We did the same thing the first time we played Cleveland. We won the game. We scored more points. He had 0 sacks. And so there was no significant sea change. We certainly got a challenge this week because they have a formidable tandem. But as I mentioned, we better do a really good job of minimizing the amount we're in those one-dimensional circumstances.
Do they move those two guys around a lot, or they tend to kind of be where they are?
They move them around, but, they move one to one side, they move up the other one to the other side, and so it's still big issues.
I guess partially where I was going with that is not just Cleveland, but like also Minnesota and Detroit are two other teams that you played against that are two of the few that have a higher sack total than yourselves and Houston. How did you feel collectively that your pass protection held up against those three teams?
I think there's no price that you can put on rush. It's probably the most significant component of good defense collectively. I think that's why the edge rushers make what they make globally. They might be the highest paid position in our sport outside of the quarterback. And so anytime you have a significant rush, it is a challenge for the opposing offensive unit. That's why we value copy and rushman and depth at that position. I'm sure that's why some of the teams that you mentioned do as well. And so it certainly is a challenge, but it's certainly not a new challenge. Our unit and units face it week in and week out because it is that significant in today's game. The weightiest downs are generally one-dimensional passing moments. Those guys, more than top-flight cover guys, have an impact on what goes down in those moments. And so we got our work cut out for us. It's certainly going to require some strategy. But as I continually mention, minimizing those moments, being in manageable one-dimensional passing down moments where you can maybe throw the ball shorter and let legs do some of the work and things of that nature is a major component of minimizing their impact on the game.
So a lot of things there. I agree with Mike Tomlin in this. They need to make it so that those guys aren't in prime positions to destroy, to be in the environment they want. The Texans, like the Steelers, they want an offense to be in 3rd and long 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times so that they can keep getting you just more chances and more chances for their edge rushers to take over the game, to be in their prime element where they can be the most useful. So the way the Steelers counter that, run the ball, hit your early passes, hit your quick passes, put it so that if you're in 3rd down, you're more often in like 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 1. You want to be in those situations and not 3rd and 13, 3rd and 9, where you have to, your quarterback needs to be in the pocket a little bit. Because also the other part about this, Nick, is them boys in the secondary for Houston ain't no jokes either.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about it is you think about when they go to nickel, it is Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley, and Jalen Petrie, and that is just 3 unbelievable players. The thing about Houston is, I think Mike kind of mentioned it, right? Get the ball out quick, the check down game. You want to do that, but also, Chris, the one thing they've struggled with really over the last, 6 or so weeks, teams have gotten them a bit over the top, and that's been the new kind of thing you can maybe hit them with. And I guess the way the Steelers have to strike a balance is how do you maybe try and take those shots down the field still while not trying to get Aaron Rodgers killed, right? You don't want your 42-year-old quarterback getting smoked on a deep ball. And so there's a few different ways to do that. I think the game against Minnesota is a good blueprint for maybe how they can try and go this. That 80-yard touchdown to Metcalf. I think, there's no part of this defense for Houston that's bad. They have good linebackers, they have good interior linemen, and they have good safeties. But they're good, not elite. The other parts of this defense are elite.
Edge rushers and corners, man.
Right, man. The Houston corners are something serious. And so when you can catch maybe catch Houston in some cover 2, and they play a fair amount of it, they're mostly a single high team. They play a lot of cover 3 and cover 1. But if you can catch them in some of those looks, maybe you can get Metcalf on a crosser. Can you get them kind of leaking on one of those plays? I think that's something to think about. But man, it's not going to be easy. But I think the Steelers really have to attack this Houston defense through the middle. Like that's where I would look at it if you can. If you can maybe try and attack the linebackers, try to stress the interior defensive line, try to do as much as you can to limit the impact of Stingley, Lassiter, Anderson, and Hunter. And then, Petrie's going to be in the middle, so you're going to have to deal with him anyways. But it's a real matchup issue for the Steelers. But the protection plan, if Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson take over this game, the Steelers are going to be the ones turning the football over. They're going to be the ones giving the Texans the ball in the short fields. And Kaimi Fairbairn is a great kicker on top of that. 3 points in this game, I think, is going to be so important. I think it's going to be that type of game where they're going to be in a rock fight. But I really do think you look at when the Steelers were most successful, that Minnesota game, and really also the Detroit game. Those 2 games to me are pretty good blueprints to how the Steelers can try and limit the Texans' pass rush. But the Texans are just such a dominant force that it's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough. It's a big challenge. We'll talk more about how this gets done between Aaron Rodgers and the playmakers. I asked Mike Tomlin about what they were able to do on third down. What can they hit on? We'll talk more about that with Nick Farabaugh here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Ultimate QB. The draft picks positions are set, and so many teams are looking for their franchise QB. Have you ever wished that you could be a pro QB, maybe getting drafted first overall by the Steelers? Well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of the number 1 draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness, to help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. This is the number 1 quarterback career mode game on the mobile app stores, and it introduces the most realistic environment with full career control. Sign contracts, train and upgrade yourself, build chemistry, and evolve your teammates. Give input to your GM on roster moves, play the actual games in 2D, and rise through the ranks to become a pro football legend. You'll deal with the ups and downs of a QB career, from rookie nerves to playoff drama, and every choice you make shapes your journey. Ultimate QB is totally free to play. It has no ads, works 100% offline, perfect for when you want to sneak in a quick game or 2 on the go. Just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search for Ultimate QB in your app store. We've got something special for you guys. Use the promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, and you'll get in the game store a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB, Football Legend QB1, it's your legacy. We're also brought to you by ZocDoc. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. You want someone in-network, nearby, with availability, but you also want a doctor who really listens, makes you feel comfortable, and explains things clearly, and helps walk you out feeling confident about your next step. Your diamond in the rough doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can choose someone you truly connect with. I love that you can search for your specialty or symptoms and quickly find the right fit. Being able to choose in-person or video makes scheduling way easier. You can check the verified patient reviews to get a real sense of the doctor's vibe and communication style. So stop putting off your doctor's appointments and get the care that you need. Go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL and you'll find instantly someone to book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter here with Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. Nick, the Steelers went 9 of 16 on third down in this game, and a lot of it was downfield passing. Aaron Rodgers connected on 3 of 6 deep balls in this game without DK Metcalf, and I thought that was a big key to getting this game going in this one. And it seemed like he found some chemistry. He had Adam Thielen down the right seam. He had Pat Freiermuth down the middle. He had Calvin Austin with that game-winning touchdown down the left sideline. And now they get back DK Metcalf. And I asked Mike Tomlin about what led to the success that they found there, especially when throwing the ball. And he kind of played it off to talk about the variables and the different things that they could throw at him. I want everyone to listen to Mike Tomlin here for a sec, and then I want to get your thoughts on what they're doing there. Here's Mike Tomlin when talking about the Steelers' third down offense.
Mike, you guys went 9 of 16 on third down. A lot of those came in the second half, and with Aaron being able to throw the ball downfield. What did you guys capture against the Ravens that you guys can replicate or need to replicate to continue that in the playoffs?
You know, we're never trying to replicate things. Variables are different week in and week out. What the Ravens did schematically in those circumstances might be dramatically different than what Houston might do. And so I just think week in and week out, you got to win the moments. And certainly we have a mode of operation in terms of winning the moments. We won a bunch of third and longs in Detroit, for example, but those were different types of third and longs that we won than when we won 3rd and 10, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8 versus Baltimore. And so it's about winning those moments and understanding what this week requires. And certainly it probably is going to be different. And so it's not building upon, it's just simply readdressing the situation in an effort to highlight our talents, individuals, and keep the ball rolling.
What's special about Aaron to be able to win in all those different varieties of moments that you're talking about there?
You know, we could talk all day about that, man. He's got a 20, 21-year resume in that regard.
I do think that it could be an advantage for the Steelers, Nick, is if they are able to make it so that Aaron Rodgers isn't under siege. He's 42. He can't move like he used to. You still can't put him under siege. But if they're able to give him enough time to see the field and at least go through two progressions, three progressions on in general on most plays, I think he can find weaknesses in the Texans defense. Mike Tomlin also said that the Texans defense is good, that they don't have to split it at them. They're not going to, I don't think the Texans are going to throw a lot of disguised stuff at them. They're going to be like, we're coming after you. And it makes me wonder, with all the different things that he talked about, the variety of ways that they attack, what is the primary way the Steelers should be looking to hurt this Texans defense and put it off balance?
I mean, there's a few ways. First of all, I know that's not the Texans' DNA. They don't disguise a lot of things. I wonder if they break the tendency this week just because it's Aaron Rodgers.
Interesting. Right.
I wonder if they do. I think they should, at least a little bit. And DeMeco Ryans is not stupid. He'll probably do it a little bit. But if they do just line up and play the coverages, I mean, advantage Aaron Rodgers in that regard, right? Draw him up in the dirt, old man, because just do as much as you can. The two ways, though, I feel like the Steelers should try and attack them. We talked about going over the top a little bit. Can you try and do that? Do you have to maybe do some rollout stuff to get the pocket moving, to pick some deep shots? Like, there's some things you can maybe try and do. I think the seams, though, are kind of the way to try and go here. Can you maybe get Pat Frymuth up the seam and get a big play there? Because I said, I would like to, if they're going to attack Houston in one area, it's up the middle. Like, that's where I would try and attack them. Free safety's probably the weakest part of that defense. Caleb Bullock's really good, strong, and Petrie's very good nickel. But who's going to be the starting free safety? They just reached Kayvon Wallace, who started last week for them. Is it going to be Miles Bryant? I mean, I like that matchup. He's probably the weak link of that group. And then the other way is you can't abandon the run game, Chris.
Right.
You talked about staying ahead of the chains. The one thing the Texans have experienced in December is a few injuries on the defensive line, especially the interior. Tim Settle and Mario Edwards are done for the year. And Tim Settle's a pretty big loss for them. He's a pretty underrated player. They still have Sheldon Rankins and Tommy Togiai and Nico Autry. But can you maybe wear them down and try and get just the running game being fine? Doesn't have to be like, can it come like the Ravens game, right? Where it just wore down over the course of the game and you started to pop some runs in the second half. So there's a few ways to do it. To me, I would try and hit some seam balls. I would try and attack the middle underneath a little bit. And I'm certain, you got to do what you do, right? You still got to get the ball out to Gainwell and Warren in space and do that all the time because that's a big part of their offense, period. And you got to get DK Metcalf his own, targets and all of that. But to me, that's part of how you do it. I think they need to stay ahead of the sticks and they need to try and open up the middle of the field a little bit. And the run game can't be a non-factor. They can't be all pass. If they step back to pass and throw 50 times, I don't think it's going to end very well for the Steelers.
Yeah, I think that the only way that gets is somehow this game gets to a shootout, and I just don't see that happening. But I think if you're the Steelers, like you said, you want to control the clock, you want to be able to run the football, and I think when a team that wants to pin their ears back and get after, they want to be aggressive because they see them as good. You got to catch them off guard sometimes. And when I say catch them off guard, I don't mean like super duper trick plays, but use the wrinkles that your offense has to catch a team that likes to play aggressive, get downhill fast. Use some draws. I really think that they could be using more the sort of the Jonnu Smith in the backfield, potential jet sweep to Kenneth Gainwell type play. I think that there's space to make that work in the middle of the field when you're not bunched up in the red zone. Force quick decisions. And if a guy gets too far upfield, all of a sudden their gap is open. And then, similarly in the pass game, the Texans, they're gonna send guys when they want to send guys. They're gonna be very upfront about a lot of things. Take advantage of that. And I think part of this could be leaning into how the teams used to beat the Steelers back when they were an elite defense, when they did have them dogs, and they would, because the Steelers, Dick LeBeau would disguise things, but sometimes, disguises just slow down the fast pace that you want to play, right? So if you wouldn't use smoke and mirrors if you have the real show in front of you, right? So that's what I think the Texans might try to lean to do, and the Steelers need to lean into things that are going to catch that off guard. Hit them behind where they blitz. Getting the ball out in the right spots, challenge them to stretch the field in different ways. Do things that teams have done for years to slow down the Steelers' pass rush. Because even recent years, when they haven't been necessarily an elite defense, but a very good defense, what was the way that you slowed down TJ Watt? You got the ball out fast. You tried to run. You tried to find ways to slow him down. I think it'd be a similar thing with this Texans team. Try to make it so that they can't get into their comfort element and trust Aaron Rodgers. This is why you went and got him. Just like you threw that game-winning touchdown pass to Calvin Austin and that made some big plays against the Ravens. You got him so that in a big game, in a tight spot, he can make the right call where others would fold.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll tell you what. I do think the kind of come to true moments are going to be those times the Steelers are going to have to step back to pass on 3rd and 8. And I think they're going to have a few moments this time. And I think back to, the Baltimore games. And I think back to Detroit. And think of how many conversions the Steelers had in those areas. Just key conversions. Just backbreaking conversions for a defense. And you're going to ask at some point Dylan Cook and Troy Fautanu to hold up. And those two guys have done a phenomenal job the past 4 to 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. And for Dylan Cook, I mean, he's gone against Dane Hutchinson. He's gone against Myles Garrett. It's not like he hasn't faced elite edge rushers. But how is this week going to play out against Anderson and Hunter? Because he's going to see both of them. And so those moments when the Steelers maybe aren't going to keep extra help in because they're going to want to push the ball down the field and they're going to try and get, a backside dig going or something of that sort. How are they going to hold up? And I think that's going to be a big part of the efficiency of this team because there are going to be moments. Because I think, we talk about dinking and dunking and staying ahead of the sticks, but the Ravens are a team that, despite, the reputation of them being this physical hulking group, this year they really haven't been that. The Texans are that. They tackle extremely well in space. They gang tackle with the football. Maybe Kenneth Gainwell and Jalen Warren, can still keep it going because they're Kenneth Gainwell and Jalen Warren, and they've been such exceptional tackle breakers. But I do think those situations on those possession downs, I think that's going to be a key thing in this game on both sides of the football because I think early downs, I think both teams are going to end up behind the sticks a few times more often than not. And so whichever team can even get just 2 or 3 of those just to keep a drive going and get some points on the board, I really think that's going to be a huge difference in this game.
I think so too. The offense doesn't need to be elite this game. They need to win the rock fight. They need to make this a rock fight. And to make this a rock fight, the defense has to show up. The defense for the Steelers in the playoffs hasn't been an asset to them as much in recent years. I want to talk about what's their biggest worry to be looking at heading into this game. That's next here with Nick Farabaugh and myself here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the game tips off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited-time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. The NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh. Nick, let's talk about this Steelers defense. I will say that I feel like this defense has trended positively towards the end of the season. They did give up 3 explosive passing touchdowns. That wasn't good. And that's something that you want to rectify. Mike Tomlin kind of addressed that a bit and saying like, hey, we were doing a bit to deal with Lamar and to keep his run game in check. And they're facing a Texans offense that hasn't exactly, taken over the league. They're decent. They're 13th in scoring, 18th in yards. They're great at protecting the football. They've protected the football the second best at that in the NFL. But they're not a big rushing team. They're 22nd in yards, 29th in yards per attempt. They're decent through the air. So going up against this team, you think about the Steelers past in the playoffs. The Ravens getting off to a hot start last year. The defense, I think, did what they could against the Bills with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. But you think back to that Chiefs game where they started off hot and then eventually the Chiefs found answers, or the Browns game where the turnovers just led to a boiling point for them, or the Jaguars where the same thing happened. All the playoff losses the Steelers have had since their last playoff win have been, you can point back and say the defense didn't deliver. What's the biggest thing that you're worried about for this defense going into this playoff game, specifically with how they could match up with the Texans?
Getting beat over the top. I think that's the big thing. And I think that's the one thing the Texans really have offensively is Nico Collins, Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, all guys that can make catches down the football field in different ways. And with the safety play that the Steelers have gotten the last 2 weeks, I think that's the biggest concern on the team, period, to be quite honest with you, from what I've seen the past 2 weeks. Duggar and Ramsey have had a rough go of things. So things need to settle there. But if I were the Steelers, I'm not sure I'd be playing much man-to-man, Chris. I don't know how much I would be doing that, because that's where I think Stroud can really shine is, throwing those fade balls. He's got a very pretty deep ball. And if you want Stroud to kind of, settle down and get sacked in the pocket, I think you got to confuse him a little bit. You got to send pressure from different places. You got to confuse that offensive line. If you take Stroud and Mills together, because Stroud did miss 4 games, the Texans have allowed the 9th most sacks in the league. It's a better offensive line than last year. If you remember that, I don't know how many Steelers fans watched the Texans last year, but that offensive line just wanted CJ Stroud to die. It's not quite the same this year. They got a few different players this year, like Ursery, their rookie, is pretty good. Trent Brown's been pretty good. They have some pieces on the offensive line that are decent, but it's still not a great offensive line. And so that's going to be the one thing for the Steelers is how the pressure, I think, gets home. But also because I think if I'm the Texans, I know the Steelers front's really good. I want to get the ball out very quickly. So how do you also kind of counteract that part of this game? So you can't get quick game to death. But if I'm the Steelers, the biggest thing I'm concerned with is one of the speed threats dunking on me down the field for an explosive play. Because I just think I've talked about it multiple times. You've talked about it multiple times now in this episode. Points are at a premium, man. I mean, 3 points in this game, I think, matters a lot. And a touchdown is going to be like gold. And so you do not want to get beat over the top for an explosive play. Just because I thought, like, this week against the Ravens, I thought the Steelers did a phenomenal job down in and down out. You look at the success rate metrics, they were great, but they allowed 3 explosive plays that led to 3 touchdowns. So you can't let that happen and let it erase everything you did on first and second down. Get out the field on third down. Don't allow explosives in possession downs, and make sure that you are on top of Nico Collins. I think that's the biggest thing. You can't let 12 beat you, because Nico Collins is probably the most dangerous player on that Texans offense.
CJ Stroud, when under pressure, 5 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions.
Yep.
That's going to be a big key. Make him uncomfortable. Make him feel the pressure coming from different spaces. And I agree with you. I think zone would make a lot of sense, especially with how the safeties have looked. The one thing I do wonder sometimes though is with the zone, you might leave your safeties in spaces where they gotta win them more. Do you challenge Jalen Ramsey and Kyle Duggar to win in there, or do you say, hey, no, we're gonna run man with a lot of 2 underlooks, so you're more the support system for if something goes wrong and you'll double up with somebody. But then again, when you're going zone, that's allowing for you to be a little bit more creative when it comes to being attacking, creating pressure, finding ways to win that way. CJ Stroud on his deep ball this year, he's completed 16 of 45 passes, 35.6% completion rate, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. If you can use that against him, if you can catch him in some situations where you can less than favorable shots, I think that's where you can try to get this team that's not turned the ball over to turn the ball over and get your defense a chance to put your offense in some good spots.
The Texans' offense, when it's not going well, is like very similar to the Steelers' offense when things are going well. They don't really turn the ball over, but they just punt the football. Like, that's what it is. It's just 3 and out, punt, and live to fight another day because your defense is that good. And so the Steelers definitely, I think, if they can get the Texans into some really rough areas, if they can get, a strip sack, a pick here, that's going to be super key. Because both these teams right now, I mean, you look at Stroud's stat line, 19 touchdowns to 8 picks, takes care of the football really well. He doesn't really fumble much either. So, he's really good at that. And that's a key thing to have with this Texans team. And I think the one thing I think that the Steelers do need to do better in the secondary is I just need better play at the catch point. That's the one thing, because Duggar, Ramsey, I mean, I think the Fannin touchdown, I think of the Isaiah Likely catch. There's just been a few moments over the past month or so where, man, you could have made some plays at the catch point in contested areas. Don't let C.J. Stroud be under duress, throw up a heave and pray ball on 3rd and 9, and have Nico Collins come down for a 30-yard reception. You know what I mean? That can't happen. So, Steelers, if I were the coaches and I was Jared Alexander this week, I'd be saying, if we are there at the catch point, if they are throwing a contested catch, that's your ball. That's not their ball. You go up aggressively and you make a play on that football. Do not lose at the catch point, because that has been the one thing the Steelers have done this year at times. I can even think back to the Green Bay game when Deshaun Elliott got hurt on that one play, Tucker Kraft just making the play out of the sky. That's the one thing I want from the Steelers' secondary this week is that's your ball. Don't lose in contested situations, because I think there's going to be a few times when Stroud's just going to be forced to take a undermanned 50-50 ball, because that's all that's there, and the Steelers DBs have to be ready to make that play on that football.
And if they do, those are the things that can flip the game around, getting those kind of turnovers in big games. That's what I think that's a big storyline for this game. So forcing, force them to be in those situations. Don't let this rushing offense that's ranked 29th in yards per carry get going. Don't let them breathe life into that. Force C.J. Stroud into more predictable situations, and let your defense be the one that's also pinning its ears back and getting a chance at those turnovers. It might be that turnovers decide the game, but to your point about punts, the Texans have punted the 5th most times of any team in the NFL, 72 times this season. For a comparison, the Steelers have punted 62 times. They rank 13th most on the year. Nick, this has been fun as always. We appreciate you coming here on the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh_FB. Make sure to check out the Steelers stuff, PennLive.com/Steelers, and check out the Steelers YouTube channel, the Steelers Blitz on Penn Live.
Absolutely. He's Nick Farabaugh. I'm Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get social media. It's always at Carter Critiques is my handle. Read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. We appreciate everyone that's been checking out the show. We got crossover Thursday tomorrow. Locked On Steelers meets Locked On Texans. Keep it here with the Locked On Steelers podcast.